Hello and welcome everybody from wherever you are around Australia, New Zealand and anywhere else in the world. We know we've got viewers joining us from all over this great big globe, and we welcome you back to the Car Sales TCR Australia and New Zealand Sim Racing Series. My name's Cameron Vandendung and I'm looking forward to bringing you all of the action tonight, rounds 7 and 8 of our Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series, and it'll be happening at the Gold Coast, Surfers Paradise, the original Indy circuit, the longest circuit, not the one that we've been racing on in recent years. Practice has been underway today, and we are at the halfway point of our Sim Racing Series. So rounds 7 and 8 will see us racing over 13 laps in both of them, 40 points up for grabs in both of those races. But before we get that underway, we'll have qualifying up very shortly. 10 points up for grabs, points available to our top 10 finishers. Lachlan Manson will be joining me with all of the action tonight, but let's run through just how that series looks so far. Dylan O'Keefe has been the form man at each of the 3 events we've held so far across what will be a 7-event series, winding down or wrapping up, I should say, at Macau. But before we get that far, we've got a fair bit of racing to do today. There have been 3 contenders that have been well and truly in the mix in the lead up to tonight. We've got Dylan O'Keefe. He's well and truly in control. 11 points behind him, John Martin, who had a stellar Sydney Motorsport Park event last week. And Ben Barguana, who came out of the blocks firing at Albert Park, he sits just 22 points off them. The man in 4th won't be joining us tonight. He's a lot further back. He's about 86 points off the pace. But Vodanovic, due to some technical issues, will not be taking part. And that puts his championship well outside the window. 86 points was the gap from 4th to 1st. And really, it's heating up between those top 3 contenders. And practice very much showed us that, with Dylan O'Keefe, John Martin and Ben Barguana being 3 of the quick men. Lockie Mansell joins me. Lockie, great to be going back to Surfers Paradise. I know a lot of people watching on will have wonderful memories of when IndyCar ran around the streets there.
Good evening to you, Cameron. Good evening, everybody. Yeah, great to go back in history to the original configuration of the Gold Coast Street Circuit at Surfers Paradise. And yeah, like you say, we're going to the original version of the circuit, which is about 4.5 kilometres in length. So rather than turning hard left after that first chicane, you go down a bit of a longer backstretch, which takes you down into, I think, what used to be referred to as ANA Hotel Corner for a couple of left-handers. So very much looking forward to this one. Of course, we don't get to go racing in real life at the Surfers Paradise Street Circuit this year, so at least we can go back there in the virtual world. And I'll tell you what, Cameron, it is a concrete canyon, so look out for plenty of action, particularly when we get into race number 2, which features the reverse grid format, because passing opportunities will be at a premium with those unforgiving concrete walls not too far away.
That's exactly right, Lockie. We know in real life racing, it can be a concrete canyon out there, and I'd imagine in sim racing form, whilst we have seen some very clean racing throughout the series so far, there has been a little bit of bump and grind going on, Lockie, particularly in race 2 of each of our evenings of racing thus far. And if you do too much of that around here at Surfers Paradise, that'll be the end of your race. And we saw just how far back Dylan O'Keefe was set early on in the race at Sydney Motorsport Park. He did a great job to make his way through the field. But John Martin was the clean man and got 2 second places at Sydney Motorsport Park, and he'll be hoping to continue that run. As I mentioned in the build-up before qualifying, only 11 points between Dylan O'Keefe in first and John Martin in second. And if John continues that run of podium form, he'll be well and truly in contention at the business end of this season.
Yeah, a couple of interesting points for me to come out of those previous races at Sydney Motorsport Park. So, number one, I think, was the fact that the drivers are just starting to get a bit more confident with this Assetto Corsa software with the TCR cars and understanding exactly how hard they can push and also how much risk they can take with overtaking manoeuvres. So they're starting to get more of a feel of their perception and spatial awareness about where they are on the track compared to their rivals and starting to be a bit more aggressive with making overtaking manoeuvres. So we saw at Sydney Motorsport Park that there was really, really good battling for position and lots of overtaking. The other key thing for me was that Dylan O'Keefe, he was the fast man at Sydney Motorsport Park, pole position and victory in race number one. In terms of the championship, though, the highest overall point scorer from the round at Sydney Motorsport Park was, in fact, John Martin, with second place in qualifying plus second place in each of the races to give him a total haul of 79 points coming out of the weekend, which goes to show that in this championship you don't necessarily have to win races, but you do have to be consistent, particularly with that reverse grid format that we have for the second race in each event.
And particularly here at Surfers Paradise, Lockie, making your way through the field with those concrete walls so close will be treacherous stuff for most of our drivers. John Martin on screen at the moment. Great to see him out testing for wall racing and with his new sponsor on board. So great to see John Martin actually back behind the wheel of a real-life car as well. So he was very happy to be out there. And Lockie, the build-up really does begin to round one. Saw a wonderful story and release coming out of Motorsport Australia today about their commitment to getting our car sales TCR Australia round one at Sydney Motorsport Park underway in September. Really looking forward to that one.
Well, let's hope for the sake of all of the drivers and the teams, not just in TCR, but in a lot of the other categories that are on the program for that event, including the S5000 category, Touring Car Masters, the Trans Am Series, Porsche Michelin Sprint Challenge, all of the other various categories. I think Australian GT Championship and Porsche Carrera Cup, both schedules being on the program that weekend as well. Let's hope that it can happen, because there are a lot of teams in national level motorsport that, from an industry perspective and from an economic perspective, are heavily reliant on that event being able to go ahead. So fingers crossed for a positive outcome with that one.
Not just the teams looking forward to being part of it, as we're watching Will Brown on screen at the moment. He was a race winner in round two, or race two, I should say, at Sydney Motorsport Park, which was round 6 of our series. He is hoping for big things again tonight. A couple of his passing manoeuvres were how would you say, aggressive, but all was clear and cleared by the stewards after the racing last time, so well done to Will Brown. But as I was saying, not just the drivers and teams looking forward to it, the media all over it. Mark Beretta, I don't know if you caught up with the podcast on Parked Up, but he is champing at the bit to get back underway, really looking forward to being part of TCR Australia Racing. And what I really enjoyed listening to on that podcast, as well as hearing him talk about the fact he's looking forward to working with Greg Russ. The two of them over all this journey have never actually worked together on a motorsport broadcast. So that'll be one for the ages, the old two of the doyens of Australian motorsport media, and hopefully looking forward to working together for the first time.
Well, I couldn't believe it when I heard that they'd never worked together before. I just sort of assumed that, given the long and illustrious careers that both of them had had in motorsport broadcasting, they would have crossed paths at some stage, but not the case. So thoroughly looking forward to hearing both of their dulcet tones on the coverage when we do go racing. Speaking of podcasts, Cameron, while we are on that subject, I'm pleased to reveal that the special guest for the next episode of my Checkered Flag Chat podcast, which will be launched next Tuesday, is going to be the CEO of the Australian Racing Group, Matt Braid. And of course, the Australian Racing Group, the business behind running categories including TCR Australia and some of those other categories like S5000 that you'll be seeing on the program at the Sydney Motorsport Park Motorsport Australia Championships event.
Well, that's a good get there, Lockie. A lot of questions to ask Matt Braid, a man that has so many amazing categories underneath his portfolio. It'll be a lot of questions I'd imagine you'd be preparing for, but with 12 minutes 51 seconds remaining in qualifying. It's John Martin, the hard charger in the series contention at the moment. He's sitting at the top there with a 147.6. Tony D'Alberto, who on social media, very excited about coming to Surfers Paradise. He also highlighted even some of the virtual boats out the back would be a good place to spend your after-race time. Will Brown in third, Rowan Shepherd in fourth, Liam McAdam in fifth, Hanson and O'Keefe in sixth and seventh. Tipperley and Luke King are our only 9 drivers to get a time in thus far. Luke King, I did manage to catch up and watch him cut a lap around Surfers Paradise earlier on today, so this afternoon I should say. So looking forward to seeing some big things from Luke King today, and it'll be interesting to see that as Ben Barguana now sets a time of 147.9 and puts himself up into the top 2. That's what we expect to see. We know Ben Barguana, one of our very quick drivers in sim racing competition.
Speaking of Tony D'Alberto and his comments about the virtual boats, I've tuned into the Discord chat between some of the drivers during one of the unofficial practice sessions that was held a bit earlier on in the evening, and there were a couple of drivers, I think Brock Timperley and Jada Ransley, it might have been, the 2 Kiwis. They both discovered in the beach section of this virtual Surfers Paradise circuit, they discovered that there was a way that you could actually somehow get through or over the wall. So they did, and they went for a drive along the beach in their TCR cars.
They'll look for any excuse just to get to the beach, won't they? A lot of our drivers as we reach the halfway point of qualifying. Remembering, if you are new to our Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series, 10 points on offer for our pole man. So if John Martin gets pole and Dylan O'Keefe sits outside the top 10, the gap between the two of them going into the first race of the evening would only be 1 point. So John Martin at the moment sits on provisional pole. Dylan O'Keefe sits in 9. If it was to finish up right now, John Martin would make a big dent in that series lead.
Yeah, I'm surprised actually that Dylan O'Keefe so far down the order, given the pace that we've seen from him in some of the previous rounds. John Martin punching out a 1 minute 47.6 to be at the top of the timesheets at the moment, just ahead of Ben Barguana. Tony D'Alberto next ahead of Will Brown, who we saw getting that race victory last time out at Sydney Motorsport Park. Back then to Rowan Shepherd, Chelsea Angelo, Liam McAdam, Jay Hanson in the Ashes Seawood Motorsport. Alfa Romeo sits 8th, and then it's Dylan O'Keefe ahead of Brock Timperley. Back then to Luke King. No lap times recorded yet for Jada Ransley or for Zach Sousa, and they're currently scored in positions 12 and 13 respectively.
Now, Lockie, you've been able to get onto a sim yourself. I know you've got a good setup there at home. Have you been cutting a few laps yourself?
I have actually. I had the opportunity to compete in a round of the Porsche Virtual Carrera Cup Series. It was actually the final round at Silverstone a couple of weeks ago. I won't say that I was one of the front-running competitors, but I certainly had a lot of fun.
Well done, Lockie. Good to see you getting involved. Tony D'Alberto moves himself back inside the top 3, but just tipped out again by Ben Barguana with a 147.9. 3 runners now in the 1 minute 47s. Chelsea Angelo up in the top 2, so great job from her thus far. That's Chelsea Angelo on screen right now. She's been on for a few good results, but probably went a bit aggressive early on in the racing, and tyres seemed to go away from her later on in the races at Sydney Motorsport Park, but we're expecting some big things from Chelsea Angelo tonight. She's been spending a lot of time on the sim, so it'll be good to see her get a podium today if she can. 8 minutes 57 seconds remaining in this qualifying session. Martin, Angelo, Barguana, D'Alberto and Will Brown, your top 5.
And one of the things about the Assetto Corsa software, Cameron, is that the drivers are actually free to make adjustments to their cars. And one of the things that a couple of them talked about last week was just how important it is to set the tyre pressures up correctly, because if you get it wrong, that means the tyres go off very quickly. And we were talking about Dylan O'Keefe maybe struggling for a bit of pace. Not anymore. He's just punched out a 1 minute 46.4 to move to the top of the timesheets by a whopping 1.2 seconds.
Well done for the Gary Rogers Motorsport entry. Great to see the team at Gary Rogers Motorsport promoting tonight's event as well. They'll be very happy with the results of Dylan O'Keefe joining the team in 2020 on board his Renault Megane RS. And familiar logo on the side of that entry as well, Lockie, in sim racing format. Not sure you'll be extending that budget to in real life, as we mentioned, probably at Sydney Motorsport Park, but you'd be happy with your investment to date?
He's certainly given me plenty of exposure. I can just say the hits on the simracingoz.com website increasing every time we see a shot of Dylan O'Keefe's car on screen, that's for sure.
7 minutes 32 remaining. Lockie, it's been really interesting to watch you personally pivot into the space, or as Dylan O'Keefe makes contact with the wall out there during qualifying, moving into the space more of sim racing. Amazing community that's been around a lot longer than many of our real-world racers would understand. It's a very highly competitive space and with an amazing global reach and platform.
And some of the top sim racing drivers in the world are Aussies. You look at Josh Rogers, for example, who's one of the front runners in the Porsche Esports Super Cup, which is widely regarded as the pinnacle of sim racing competition in the world. And there are some seriously large amounts of money up for grabs for very top level sim racers. So good to see that we're breeding some sim racing talent down under. Obviously, the COVID-19 lockdown situation has probably thrust the industry into the public spotlight a bit more than what it had been previously. And once you actually start to get involved and you start to get to know some of the people in the community, you understand not just how seriously they take it and how competitive it is, but also the amount of professionalism that goes on behind the scenes and some of the commercial opportunities that are increasingly becoming available as well. So it's a growing industry, and the COVID-19 pandemic's only accelerated that growth.
It's great to see, and Lockie, I've just been immersing myself in it as well, and I've been speaking even to one of our series commentators for the Car Sales TCR Australia series that's coming up later this year on Channel 7, on all of the networks of Channel 7, and still also being streamed as well. Matt Nolte, he's been back on his sim. He told me this week that he actually loses hours now. He's been enjoying it that much. So great to see that he's been getting well and truly involved in the virtual world as well.
I think we need to line up an all-commentator sim race. Cameron, what do you reckon?
Well, I've already been talking to the team at ARG just to see if we could sneak a couple of our commentators in the back end of this year's Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. Watch this space, Lockie. Watch this space. We might have some breaking news at a round coming up soon. But we've got one of our commentators over in New Zealand at the moment. A big hello to Greg Rust. His whole family are over there, just down the road from the Murphys, funnily enough. You could just about drive a golf ball from Greg Rust's house to Greg Murphy's house. And he celebrated a milestone birthday in recent weeks, did Greg Rust, and I believe the Murphys were part of that celebration. So happy birthday, Rusty. I won't mention just how old you are on air. I put it on all of my social media platforms. But I'm sure you did enjoy your birthday over there in New Zealand, mate.
So 4 minutes and 40 seconds remaining in this qualifying session. Dylan O'Keefe still on top, but Chelsea Angelo's gone within 0.2 of a second of the time set by the Gary Rogers Motorsport Renault Megane. So a minute 46.4 for O'Keefe plays, minute 46.6 for Angelo. Then we go back to John Martin, Rowan Shepherd in fourth position. Ben Bargwanna, who's qualified up the pointy end for the rounds that we've had so far this season, a bit further back than we'd expect. He's back in position 5 at the moment. And then it's D'Alberto back to Hanson, Brown, McAdam, Ransley, Timperley and King. Zach Suter yet to set a time at this stage. I'm just wondering if maybe he's got some sort of technical issue because it's quite late in the session and we still haven't seen a lap time recorded for Suter and his privately entered Honda Civic.
There's Ben Bargwanna on screen. Already received my obligatory or my standard text, I should say, from his father, Jason Bargwanna, who was going to take part in the sim racing series, but handed over at the last minute, the 11th hour, if you will, to Ben Bargwanna. And what a smart decision that was. Ben Bargwanna, 22 points off the series lead at the moment. He came out of the blocks firing, didn't he, at Albert Park? Had a bit of a quieter weekend at Sydney Motorsport Park, which put him behind the 8 ball, so to speak, but he's well and truly in contention. We're right on board with him right now. That was a nice shortcut, the chicane right there, but he continues on his merry way. 5th place at the moment in qualifying, 3 minutes remaining. O'Keefe, Angelo, Martin, Shepherd and Ben Bargwanna. Tony D'Alberto doing a great job to be inside the top 6 as well.
Shaping up for some competitive racing, that's for sure. We're watching Ben Bargwanna on screen at the moment in the Burson Auto Parts Peugeot 308. another car that is prepared out of the Gary Rogers Motorsport stable. One of the things about Gary Rogers Motorsport, and it's been a long time tradition, is that whenever he takes young drivers under his wing, part of their education and professional development is they actually have to spend time working in the workshop. So I know that Ben Bargwanna spends a lot of time at the workshop. Dylan O'Keefe's been working there as well. And it's a tradition that dates way back to when Garth Tander and Jason Bargwanna were driving for the team back in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah, I wonder how many of our drivers in this format work on their own sims as well. Lockie, would you have the professional sim team set up, or is it all by yourself just sitting there, especially in your household, mate? Who sets up your sim and equipment?
Oh, in my household, I get to do it all by myself. I'll give you that tip. I actually don't mind playing around with the sim equipment, but I'm the sort of person who likes to do everything my way. So, yes, very much down to me.
1 minute 46 seconds remaining, Lockie, at the moment. Ben Bargwanna now up into third. Jason Bargwanna straight on the text message to me, saying that he sat down Ben this week, showed him the surfboards in the pool room for inspiration. So I wonder if it was inspiration or just reminding the young fella that where his father has been and what he has done in the past. 1 minute 24 seconds remaining. Thank you, Jace. Keep firing those through to us, mate. As Dylan O'Keefe, Chelsea Angelo and Ben Bargwanna hold down the top three, with John Martin sitting in fourth place.
Well, yeah, when you think about it, Jason Bargwanna's actually had some experience and some success, hasn't he, at the version of the track that we're racing at tonight, the Full Surfers Paradise Circuit, because he was the round winner in Gary Rogers Motorsport Commodore here back in 2002 in the wet. Bargs always went well in the wet, so wasn't too much of a surprise to see him rising to the fore when the rain started falling. I actually remember watching that race as a kid. I think he had a really good battle with Craig Lowndes, who was in the famously liveried green-eyed monster that weekend. And I think Bargs finished on the podium a few years later in a Larkin Motorsport Falcon as well, as we see that Chelsea Angelo trying very hard to find that bit of extra time that she needs to challenge Dylan O'Keefe, using all of the road and getting maybe just a little bit too close to some of those unforgiving concrete walls.
I'm pretty sure she nailed that concrete wall before there, Lockie, when she was looking for that little bit of extra tarmac, a bit of bitumen, as we ride still on board with Chelsea Angelo at the moment. 6 seconds remaining in this session, and we'll see how this one plays out. That's Dylan O'Keefe. He's out of the way now as Chelsea Angelo continues. I think at this stage, with Ben Bargwanna through the checkered flag, it will be Dylan O'Keefe on pole position. Can't see anyone going any quicker than him at the moment. So it's O'Keefe, Angelo, Bargwanna through the checkered flag. John Martin could have something for us, and maybe even Rowan Shepherd. Chelsea Angelo has slowed right up as well, so she's out of it. John Martin now. He's in fourth place. Still on a lap here. He's got a time to beat of a 146.1. I don't think he's going to go anywhere near that time. He needs to find basically a second from his fastest lap. So he's 3/10 away at the moment. That could put him in to second place on the front row alongside Dylan O'Keefe. So John Martin currently sits in fourth. The clock has counted down. Let's stay on this lap with him. Has he gone quicker? We'll keep an eye out. Currently, he looks like he's on the brakes there early on. I think he may have aborted this lap, has John Martin at the end of this session, as Chelsea Angelo's now through at the checkered flag. Tony D'Alberto's through. So he'll start in seventh. Can't see him going any quicker. Shortcutting there by John Martin. So that will be the end of his session, and he will not go any faster. That sets your grid for round 7 of the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. There's Rowan Shepherd. He's also stopped out on circuit, and he is in 5th place as we see it right now. So the cars will be making their way back in. Will Brown will be starting out at position number 6. But it's Dylan O'Keefe, 10 points for your series leader. John Martin fits in 4th. So Dylan O'Keefe extends his series lead before we get into round 7 of the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. Cars now out on the grid at the moment. And yet again, Dylan O'Keefe shows his speed, his pace over one lap. He dominated them. I think it was 3/10, maybe even 4/10 clear of Chelsea Angelo, and John Martin was 9/10 away. He'll be starting out of position number 4. He's just second man when it comes to the order in the series at the moment. Now, Lockie Mansell with me, mate. I'm going to ask you for your kiss of death. Will you continue this run of tipping the driver that will have the most misfortune in this race.
Yeah, the commentator's curse has not been kind to too many of the drivers so far, has it? Well, Dylan O'Keefe back-to-back pole positions, and we've seen that he's taken really, really strong race victories in the first race in the previous couple of events, so it's pretty hard to tip against Dylan O'Keefe at the moment. So here's my prediction for this one.
Well, if you look to your screens right now, you'll see the official results from qualifying that will set our grid for round 7. First race of the night here at Surfers Paradise, and if you're just joining us now, this is the Indy Circuit, the long Indy Circuit. It'll be over 13 laps. The man sitting in fourth, Peter Bogdanovic, in terms of the series, is not competing tonight. So that really lets our top 3 just skip away even further. Dylan O'Keefe, your series leader, will start on pole position. Ben Barguana, who sits third in the series, is in the mix here. Great job by Chelsea Angelo in qualifying trim and should be in the mix for a good race result here. But John Martin, the man who finished second at both races, Sydney Motorsport Park just last week, he'll be starting on the outside of row number 2 and all in contention. And Lockie Mansell, I'm really looking forward to this one, mate. I know you've said Dylan O'Keefe should be able to convert from pole, but that means he needs to get a good start and make sure he doesn't get caught up in any damage early on in this lap. And when we started qualifying, you did mention, Lockie, just how close those concrete walls were. So Dylan will hope to get away nice and cleanly and that everybody else keeps it clean, particularly on that first lap.
It's going to be pretty treacherous heading down side by side into the first chicane on this opening lap. We've seen over the years that there have been some incidents and sometimes there's been situations where drivers have had to go straight ahead at that first chicane to make sure that they haven't had contact with another driver. So that'll be interesting to see if they can make it through there without too much chaos or damage.
And that's going to be critical, isn't it? It's all about getting these points. 40 points on offer for the race winner here. Round 7 of the Carsales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. We've got drivers from Australia and New Zealand. Another opportunity to give a big shout out to everyone around the world watching in tonight. I love to look at the comments in the days and hours, even after the broadcast. So a big hello to everybody. I know there's quite a few people in Europe and the UK watching in, as well as we are 1 minute away from a race start here at Surfers Paradise. Round 7, as I mentioned, the first race of the night. This is as they qualified. Remember, at the end of this one, we'll have another race where we reverse the entire field. We wait for the red lights. Lockie, I'm looking forward to it. You've called Dylan O'Keefe. Can Chelsea Angelo get a result here just quickly?
She needs to get a good start. If she can beat Dylan off the line, anything's possible.
So we're ever closer now. It's about Ben Barguana and John Martin. They can't let Dylan O'Keefe get any further away. We go to the grid now at Surfers Paradise. Remember, this is the long circuit. Watch for the red lights on screen to come on. And a big shout out yet again to everybody in the TCR field as well. We've got so many of our teams and competitors watching on. Surfers Paradise, halfway point of the season. Long hold of the lights, and we're away now at Surfers Paradise. It looked like a good start there from Dylan O'Keefe and Chelsea Angelo. You mentioned Lockie Mansell. She had to get a good start to get this one and hopefully keep herself in contention for a good result. Getting swamped, though, in the background. She's been able to clear them, though. I thought Ben Barguana and John Martin might have gone round either side, but Chelsea Angelo holds down second. Dylan O'Keefe, he got that clear start that he was hoping for, and Ben Barguana holds off John Martin, and it looks like Rowan Shepherd just tucking in behind him. Tony Delberto back there in 6. That's Dylan O'Keefe leading. Chelsea Angelo's got a good little gap now, and that's Rowan Shepherd, who runs a bit wide on the exit that'll allow Tony Delberto to get into the rear wing. Jay Hansen starting to go with him as well, and Dylan O'Keefe so quick over one lap. He has this race well and truly under control as we ride on board. Ben Barguana trying to get a run now on Chelsea Angelo, and we look to the rearview mirror, and that's John Martin as well. Plenty of contenders for the series here, looking for a way past Chelsea Angelo. Shortcuts the corner. That's going to hurt her. Does she have to give up that position? Ben Barguana will hope so. Chelsea Angelo will press on anyway. The pressure got to her early, Lockie.
The officials will be monitoring drivers and looking at people shortcutting the circuit like Tony Delberto just did there, and if it is deemed that you gained an advantage, they might impose some post-race time penalties. We've got a couple of cars in the fence including Ben Bargwanna, just going straight ahead there and firing into the unforgiving concrete barrier. So Bargwanna goes dropping way down the order, and we've got more damage here. Jay Hansen involved. So to Rowan Shepherd getting turned around and facing the wrong way.
That's a messy start to the lap. Dylan O'Keefe will be able to get well and truly out in front here at the moment. Tony D'Alberto, that was interesting to see what happened there when he just shortcutted everything and made sure he was almost playing Super Mario Karts out there, was Tony D'Alberto. Dylan O'Keefe, Chelsea Angelo and Tony D'Alberto up into your top three now. So Chelsea Angelo, she's well and truly comfortable now in second place. Dylan O'Keefe looks like he's just backed off the pace slightly. The gap's holding at about 1.7, 1.8 seconds between first and second. We look now back to Ben Bargwanna as he tries to hold off Liam McAdam and Zach Suter behind him. Is that Jay Hansen? There it is. He's in a big battle, isn't he?
Fighting it out with Jaden Ransley at the moment. One of the other big losers on that opening lap there, Cameron, was John Martin. I think he was one of the cars that went into the wall in sympathy with Ben Bargwanna. He's tumbled all the way down to 12th position, make that 13th in fact, because he's just lost another spot to Rowan Shepherd. So John Martin, one of our championship contenders, sitting stone motherless last at the moment.
This is the exact opposite of how his weekend unfolded, or his race event unfolded just a week ago at Sydney Motorsport Park. He kept it so clean and unfortunately caught up in some damage. Look at that car. Looks like it is an absolute nightmare to drive for John Martin. He got caught up in some damage early on, in the race 2 at Bathurst as well. As we watch that battle continue, this is just turning into carnage out there for drivers at the back of the order through Jaden Ransley and Jay
what
Hansen
happened
there with him as well. Yeah,
Jay Hansen got down the inside of Jaden Ransley. They both went up the escape road, and then as Jay Hansen rejoined, he took out Liam McAdam. So, again, several cars involved in that incident. And one of the things we've talked about it before in previous rounds, Cameron, is that if you have too much contact with other cars or with concrete walls, it bends the steering and it makes the car an absolute nightmare to try and hustle around the track for the rest of the race. And I think that a few drivers are going to be dealing with that at the moment.
so exactly what we expected, Lockie. Plenty of contact with the walls and plenty of contact with each other. And that's really played into the hands of Dylan O'Keefe. He's nearly 2 seconds up the road from Chelsea Angelo now. There's Jaden Ransley still on screen. This is a lot further down the order, but back to the front now. That's Dylan O'Keefe through. Chelsea Angelo in a huge gap back to Ben Bargwanna and Will Brown. Dylan O'Keefe well and truly in control. We expected a good result from Chelsea Angelo tonight. We saw some great form from her throughout qualifying. And she hasn't been shaken just yet. 2 seconds still the gap as we look back to Ben Bargwanna, who's 6 seconds off the pace. And this feisty battle pack with Jay Hansen sitting right behind Will Brown from the HMO Customer Racing entry.
And Zach Suter right in that battle as well. Remember, he started this race at the back of the grid, but he's worked his way up to 6th position just by virtue of staying out of a lot of those incidents that other drivers were involved in. And John Martin, incidentally, has actually brought his Honda Civic back into the pits. So obviously the damage really, really serious for John Martin, and doesn't look like he's going to continue at this stage.
Plenty of racing left in this one, Lockie. We're only on lap 3 of 13. I wonder what more can unfold as the gap still sitting at 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds now. Dylan O'Keefe just edging further in front. And Ben Bargwanna doing a great job to start to hunt down Chelsea Angelo and get some more valuable points. As I said before, there was a extension of the series lead by Dylan O'Keefe after that pole position. And if we finish the way we are, Dylan O'Keefe will be in a commanding lead in the sim racing series. But there's Ben Bargwanna. It's about getting as many points back as possible. That gap now between himself and Chelsea Angelo really starting to drop. He's got a fair bit of work, lap 4 of 13, but plenty of racing to go. Will Brown, just under 2 seconds behind him. You'll see him round the corner. And right behind Will Brown, our winner from Sydney Motorsport Park last time out, Jay Hansen, has been involved in a fair few incidents, let's call it, so far this evening.
And Will Brown's punched out the fastest lap of the race at this stage as well. Cameron, best time of 1 minute 46.0, which is well over a second quicker than the best time achieved by our race leader Dylan O'Keefe. So didn't quite qualify where he wanted to, Will Brown, but just like we saw in the previous round at Sydney Motorsport Park, showing some really, really strong race pace, and won't take too much longer with the lap times that he's clocking at the moment before he's up challenging Ben Bargwanna for a top 3 position.
Now, I should also mention Tony D'Alberto, that disappeared off our screens, has, he has said he lost his internet connection, but as we saw some of the social media banter, there has been a lot of discussion about the Italian heritage of Tony D'Alberto and what is often referred to in sim racing as a rage quit, but he's claiming it was an internet disruption. So Tony D'Alberto, when you see him out at the moment in the pits, that's due to, unfortunately, a technical issue, we believe.
It's a shame for him. John Martin, incidentally, has rejoined the racetrack down in 12th position, but he's a lap down on the field at this stage after a lengthy pit stop to get his car repaired. It's important for him, though, to stay on the racetrack and get classified as a finisher to make sure that he scores points, but also to make sure that he can hopefully pick up a very good starting position for race number 2, which will feature that reverse grid format.
Now, Lockie, do you think Tony D'Alberto might have done a Kimi Räikkönen at this stage? Will he be sitting back with his overalls down, drinking a nice, refreshing beverage on a yacht right now?
Maybe he's gone out to one of those virtual boats out off the coastline here at the Gold Coast and is, having a couple of relaxing beverages out there.
Plenty of racing still to go, and look at this, Chelsea Angelo's actually done a good job. I know we're following Will Brown at the moment, but I've just been monitoring the time of Chelsea Angelo and Dylan O'Keefe out in front. It was out over 2 seconds. She's brought it down to only a second and a half. Dylan O'Keefe has slowed right up now. So Chelsea Angelo right behind Dylan O'Keefe. Not sure what happened there, but now Chelsea Angelo is well and truly in the hunt here for a race win.
She's done a really good job in this race. Her times have been fast and consistent, and now only about half a second behind Dylan O'Keefe, who I reckon might have just made a bit of a mistake there, perhaps took a bit too much curb there through the beach chicane, and that's what cost him some momentum through that part of the track. But he's under pressure now, Dylan O'Keefe, and this has been by far Chelsea Angelo's most competitive performance of the season so far. So all of that time that she's been spending on the sim practicing really starting to pay off for her tonight, and O'Keefe is going to have a serious fight on his hands if he wants to bring home the race victory here. Oh, he's made a mistake. Dylan O'Keefe clipped the wall. Here goes Angelo on the inside, and we have a new race leader. Chelsea Angelo elevates the VW Golf to the front.
So we just saw Dylan O'Keefe into the wall, and that's allowed Chelsea Angelo through. And Ben Bargwanna sniffs a chance here. This is what he wanted. He was 22 points behind on the series when we came to Surfers Paradise. Right behind him, though, Will Brown, I should say. Right behind Ben Bargwanna. And we're getting ever closer now. This is what we wanted to see from the series battle. John Martin, he's well and truly out of contention for this race. But we're right on board now with Ben Bargwanna. He's up against Dylan O'Keefe in the series. It was 22 points I mentioned before. It extended out from there after qualifying. But if he can get in front of Dylan O'Keefe at this point in time, it'll start bringing him further back into contention. He can sense an opportunity here. Chelsea Angelo, she's 3 seconds up the road now. Well done, Chelsea Angelo. She's cleared right out. As Ben Bargwanna now on a looking like he is very much maimed. Dylan O'Keefe, that car has got some serious issues there. And Will Brown's here. So if Ben Bargwanna and Will Brown get through, it's just going to help. Every car that can get past is going to help Ben Bargwanna in his series hunt. So that's Dylan O'Keefe, the pole man, multiple race winner in the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. We cut back now. He's got a run on him. He's through. Ben Bargwanna past Dylan O'Keefe. Will Brown will go for the opportunity as well to get through and take further points away from our series leader.
O'Keefe's got no pace at the moment. He's walking wounded. You could see there on the main straight that both Ben Bargwanna and Will Brown just cruised past him in a straight line. So obviously that contact that O'Keefe had with the wall earlier on, it's damaged his car. and it's causing him to tumble down the orders. So two of our main championship protagonists in O'Keefe and John Martin both experiencing some dramas. So from a championship perspective, this could really be Ben Bargwanna's opportunity to capitalise.
Now, Lockie, I've been trying to work out what's been going on with Chelsea Angelo to see so much pace. I've just been checking with a few of the team bosses and a few people that know Chelsea quite well. Apparently, her secret sauce tonight is some of the Barossa's finest. So just like when I go and play pool and I have a couple of beverages and all of a sudden I relax into the game, it looks like Chelsea Angelo might have enjoyed something that a bit of grapes fermented for a while. A couple of glasses of that, it's eased her up. And who would have thought that was the secret to sim racing success? 7 laps down out of 13.
Of course, Cameron, we don't condone that behaviour when it comes to driving anything in real life, but in the virtual world, I suppose that it's absolutely acceptable.
Well, in the E-Series Cup we had earlier on, we had Stevie J driving one night, and at one point he actually knocked his drink onto his lap, which really set him back. So Stevie J struggled, but Chelsea Angelo, she's got a look at her. She's flying out there, 3 seconds up the road at the moment. And I'm not allowed to dob in Sam Stratton as the person that told me what Chelsea Angelo was up to. So let's just keep it between us, shall we, Lockie?
Yeah, you can trust us. We won't tell anyone, we promise.
There's Ben Bargwanna sitting in second place at the moment, 3.8 seconds off the pace. He's not worried about Chelsea Angelo at the moment. He's worried about keeping Will Brown behind him. The hard-charging race winner from Sydney Motorsport Park is really putting the pressure on to the young Bargwanna.
Gee, if Will Brown could learn how to qualify properly, he'd find it a lot easier to win races because his race pace has been tremendous. But once again, qualifying quite a long way down the orders tonight, and it's left him with a lot of hard work to do in the race. But this is where the battle is at the moment. Positions 2 and 3 between Bargwanna and Brown. O'Keefe sitting back there in 4th position, and he's now fallen more than 4 seconds behind these two drivers. So for O'Keefe now, it's really just about trying to salvage some championship points and hopefully take advantage of the fact that his main rival, John Martin, is having an even worse night so far.
And for Dylan O'Keefe, it's just about salvaging points, isn't it?
Liam McAdam facing the wrong way, and he'll obviously go a lap down, so that's not the place to park, Liam. Backed up
Liam
into the
McAdam's
wall.
He's having a dirty old night at the moment, is Liam McAdam, so he is a lap down. John Martin might get another position here and move himself up into the top 11. So he'll be hoping for that as Will Brown on screen, our inaugural car sales TCR Australian champion, and a driver that has been touted to have a steer overseas when we open up our borders. But based on what we heard from Qantas, mate, I think he'll be really enjoying his racing in Australia for a little while to come. But so much opportunity lies ahead for this young driver and Will Brown, one of the true characters of the sport. He's just a great guy, and it's great to see him continuing to be so fast in everything he drives.
We've said it before, the hallmark of a talented racing driver is someone who's able to step between different types of cars and to be quick in all of them, and Will Brown has certainly demonstrated that, as we see that O'Keefe is now falling back into the clutches of Jay Hansen and also Zach Suter. Now, interestingly enough here as well, Ben Bargwanna and Will Brown, although they've been battling one another, they've also been punching out some pretty rapid lap times, and they are bringing down Chelsea Angelo's gap at the front of the field. It's now only a second between Angelo and Bargwanna. So with 4.5 laps to go, what this could be setting up for, Cameron, is a grandstand finish with those 3 drivers all battling it out for the win in the last few laps.
Dylan O'Keefe about to lose 2 spots to Hansen and Zach Suter. He'll try to hold them off as long as possible. But you're right, that gap at half a second now between Angelo and Ben Bargwanna as Hansen puts a move on Dylan O'Keefe, and smart by Dylan O'Keefe. He knows he doesn't have the pace, so he doesn't want to get caught up in an accident that'll put him any further behind. But now he head back to the front. That's your race leader, Chelsea Angelo. Ben Bargwanna right behind her, and Will Brown. Ben wanting one of the virtual surfboards to go alongside the surfboard shown to him by his father, Jason Bargwanna, this week just gone. So Chelsea Angelo doing a great job. I wonder if the Barossa effect is just starting to wear off on her at the moment. 0.2 of a second. The run here for Ben Bargwanna pulls out. Angelo covers off, but I think Ben Bargwanna's got her here. He's got the inside run. Will Brown just hanging back. And Ben Bargwanna through. Chelsea shortcuts, but in the end allows Will Brown through. Now Bargwanna. Will Brown, first and second. Chelsea Anslow hoping to hold on to that podium position as Will Brown now starts to put a move on Ben Bargwanna. He's got the inside run here, should have the sit. And Will Brown, race winner at Sydney Motorsport Park, now leads with just over 3 laps remaining.
Beautiful racecraft from Will Brown. We saw that he was content just to sit behind Bargwanna for a few laps. Let Bargwanna do the hard work of getting past Chelsea Angelo, and as soon as the opportunity presented itself, he was able to slip through on the inside. Interesting as well that Chelsea didn't fight for that position a bit harder. I thought that she might have made it a bit more difficult for Bargwanna and for Brown to get past, but by the time they caught up to her, they were able to get past fairly comfortably. So I'm wondering if maybe Chelsea's just nursing a bit of damage at the moment as well, because she's already fallen a couple of seconds off these 2 leaders.
So Ben Bargwanna putting a move on Will Brown. You'd imagine that it wouldn't be hard for some of our drivers like a Dylan O'Keefe, like a Chelsea Anslow, to have made contact with the wall, just trying to eke out even further of a lead, and that's really hampered them. We'll find out from the drivers at the end of this, no doubt. And Will Brown continues to hold off Ben Bargwanna. Plenty of race left here. And Chelsea Angelo, she's been fighting valiantly. And she's only 1.2 seconds off the pace. I did think, just like you were mentioning, Lockie, she was about to drop right away. But she's been able to pull herself back into the battle here. So Will Brown, Ben Bargwanna, Chelsea Angelo, lap 11 of 13. Jay Hansen in 4th, Zach Suter in 5th. Dylan O'Keefe still holds down 6th. 7.7 seconds or 7.5 seconds back from him's Luke King. So Dylan O'Keefe may well be able to salvage 6th place out of this race as we look back to John Martin, who's inside the top 10.
Unbelievable considering the dramas that he had in the early stages of the race, but with some of his other rivals falling by the wayside, he's been able to work his way back up to 10th, albeit a lap down on the field. And if you're Ben Bargwanna at the moment, how hard do you fight for this win here? Because is it worth taking the risk and potentially sustaining damage, or do you settle for a very solid 2nd place and a big bundle of points, knowing that both of your championship rivals in Dylan O'Keefe and John Martin have both experienced some difficulties tonight?
You go for the win, Lockie. 5 points extra between 1st and 2nd. I think it would really help Ben Bargwanna. Also, they're not in here as these drivers just to make up a podium. They'll go for a race win. So for Ben Bargwanna, those extra 5 points, as well as bragging rights after his father did show him those surfboards, would go a long way for the young driver. I say he goes for it, Lockie. 35 points versus 40. There's a lot to gain in a series that's got such a tight battle at the top.
Good point. So I reckon that you're right. I reckon that Bargs will be on the attack with the way that the point system's structured. You're right. There is a bigger reward up for grabs for the higher placing positions. So 5 points the difference between 1st and 2nd, and not quite as much of a difference the further down the order you go, as we're right on board with Zach Suter. This has been a good battle, and this has been going on for a while between him and Jay Hansen. Suter with a good slipstream down the straight. He'll pull to the inside, but the Ash Seawood Motorsport Alpha turns across and assumes the racing line heading through the first chicane. Oh no, he's made a mistake. Hard into the fence goes Jay Hansen. And I think he did that all on his own. Cameron, it looks like he just got it a bit wrong there heading through the 2nd chicane, and that was a fairly heavy impact with the wall there for the Alpha.
And look who's coming behind him, wanting more points, is Dylan O'Keefe, and this further points to my position that Ben Bargwanna needs that race win if he can get it. Jay Hansen, left hand down massively, isn't it? Compromise now for the rest of this race. Lap 12 of 13, not long to go now. And Dylan O'Keefe is also nursing that car. The gap behind him, Luke King, still 6 seconds off the pace, 7 seconds off the pace, so he won't be able to get to Dylan O'Keefe in this race. But we're back at the front now. Ben Bargwanna, he will go for the race win if he can get an opportunity. It looks like he's setting up Will Brown. Will Brown parks it to the inside of the corner. Bargs looks like for the over-under, but Will Brown covers off here. We continue to watch this battle. Barg's able to look for the weak spots in Will Brown's game. Will Brown able to park the car where he wants to, where he needs to keep Ben Barguana behind him. Chelsea Angelo's just in the mix in case anything happens to the two cars in front. The gap only 1 second now between, 1.5 seconds between first and third. And we start the last lap of round 7 of the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. Will Brown from Ben Barguana and Chelsea Angelo. This is going to be a barnstorming finish.
Yeah, great display of driving from both of these competitors, and I've just thought of the other incentive to go for the win, Cameron. The fact that you get an interview with us. You need to win the race to earn yourself a chat with you and I at the end.
Well, that might be more a disincentive, I'd say, Lockie. They might throw the win. Will Brown might hear as Ben Barguana goes around the outside of Will Brown. He must be tuned in to our coverage tonight and went, oh, no, I don't need to speak to Cam again. As Ben Barguana now gets a good run here. So we are on the last lap. It's a drag race. But yet again, Will Brown parks it to the inside. Will Ben Barguana try something? He switches back and continues to look at the rear of the Hyundai in front. Where will he get past, Lockie? I just can't see it. Will Brown just too technical in his racecraft.
It was almost a super duper spectacular move from Ben Barguana around the outside. Not very often that you see outside passing manoeuvres happen at the Surfers Paradise circuit in that particular corner, but wasn't quite able to pull it off. He still wants to think about it, hanging tough, and this will give him the inside for the next corner. Not quite room though to squeak up the inside. One corner left to run, which will be the final left-hander leading onto the main straight. And I think Will Brown's done just enough here, Cameron, to pick up the second race victory, and it'll be back-to-back race wins as well, following on from the victory that he achieved at Sydney Motorsport Park in the previous round.
Great drive, Will Brown and Ben Barguana. He tried everything, didn't he, Ben? But Will Brown just covered him off enough. We thought it was going to be the race of Dylan O'Keefe. Unfortunately, he dropped right back. Then we thought Chelsea Angelo had it in the bag. But these two, they kept fighting throughout the race. And in the end, the race win went, as you say, consecutive races. So round 6 and 7 now to Will Brown from HMO Customer Racing. There's Dylan O'Keefe. He's managed to limp the car home in 6th place. I don't think Luke King will get to him just yet. Or will he? Luke King? He's having a look through. Checkered flag, I should say. That's already gone. So Dylan O'Keefe did get through. Luke King, Tim Pulley, Rowan Shepherd will be the next man. And John Martin has done so well to get that car back into the top 10. And watch out for him in this reverse grid race. John Martin crosses the line now as well. And that puts him into 10th place and one of our contenders, genuine contenders for round 8, which is a reverse field very shortly. Lockie, thoughts on that race?
Well, there was plenty of action at the start, wasn't there? And quite a few incidents with cars bumping into each other and bouncing off concrete walls, but we had a good clean battle there at the end between Brown and Barguana for the win. Good performance from Chelsea Angelo too. Best result so far for her with 3rd place, although I think she'll probably be a bit disappointed not to have finished a bit higher than that, considering how long she was in the lead for.
Well, she did a great job. We need to find out from her, and I'm sure we can get on the message and find out whether she did have contact with the wall or something, because she really dropped away very quickly and then just didn't have the car pace to really match it with the two in front. Having said that, she was able to hang with them right to the finish. So there's Chelsea Angelo on screen at the moment. Great result from her. Season high for Chelsea Angelo, in fact. And that, whilst doesn't bring her into series contention, will certainly be very proud for her to have a podium so far in the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. So interesting to note as well, Australian in our top 3. Not that I'm claiming bragging rights for our Kiwi cousins over there, Lockie.
I'll tell you what, I can't wait for the reverse grid race, which is coming up next, because that first race had enough bump and grind as it was. Now we reverse the field. I can only imagine what this next one's going to be like.
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? We did expect to see some contact with the walls, but probably not as much as we saw. Jay Hansen was in everything throughout. Liam McAdam had a dirty old race as the cars put themselves back into position. And we just remind you all again, that podium was Will Brown from Ben Bargwanna and Chelsea Angelo. Outstanding result. We now reverse the entire field, and that puts John Martin onto the front row after that early incident for him really put him back and has really set him back in a series point of view. Dylan O'Keefe did enough to get 6 in his result that last time around, but as a result of second place for Ben Bargwanna, the series really tightens up now. John Martin will need to deliver a race win here to bring himself back into contention. At this point in the season, we are now over the halfway mark. We'll start the second half of the TCR Australia Sim Racing Series right now in round 8. And John Martin needs a race win. He needs all 40 points, and hoping that Dylan O'Keefe and Ben Bargwanna aren't able to make their way through the field. There's the official results from round 7 of the Car Sales TCR Australia and New Zealand Sim Racing Series. Will Brown goes back-to-back. Last race at Sydney Motorsport Park, first race here at Surfers Paradise on the Indy circuit. So great to see for him that he's also able to make it a 2-time race win for HMO Customer Racing. And Lockie Mansell, he's got his work cut out for him now if he's going to be able to get through this field without any contact or damage.
Particularly this circuit as well. If there's one circuit where you don't want to be starting down the order for the reverse grid race, it's this one. I actually reckon that his teammate Jaden Ransley might be quite well placed here as well in the second of the HMO Customer Racing Hyundai i30s, because he actually has pretty decent pace, Jaden Ransley, and he's starting on pole position. So if he can put his head down and get some clear track early, I reckon that Jaden Ransley might just be in the prime position here.
Well, welcome back to the virtual studio. That's the voice of Lockie Mansell you're hearing now. From an occupational health and safety point of view, we can't show you his face. Unfortunately, he's known as the ladies' man, and we may well break the internet if we do put his face out there on screen. So, Lockie, you are the voice with me at the moment, as we are 2 minutes away. And ladies' man, now who's the kiss of death on? Because you did put on Dylan O'Keefe, and you are, mate, on a hot streak of tipping who is going to have the most misfortune in a race.
Well, I think I just tipped Jaden Ransley, didn't I? So, yeah, I'll owe him an apology afterwards.
No, we'll see. Come on, are you going to actually put someone on the spot here as well as we get set for round 8 of the Car Sales TCR Australia Series?
Yeah, Jaden Ransley is my tip.
So Jaden Ransley is your call. John Martin, you're going to leave him alone? You're hoping for the race win for John, are you?
So what you're saying is that I should tip the person who I don't want to win because that will put the curse on them.
That is exactly what I'm saying, ladies, man, as we are 1 minute away from round 8 of the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series here at Surfers Paradise. Remember, Will Brown and Ben Bargwanna will start off the back of the grid. A couple of rows in front of them is the fast man from qualifying, the pole sitter after our qualifying session in Dylan O'Keefe, hoping to get as many points back on his 2 series rivals in John Martin, who'll be starting on the front row, and Ben Bargwanna, who closed up that gap. We wait now for the red lights. The final race of tonight. We are halfway through our season. This is the 4th event out of 7. And we look for the red lights now here. Astron Tech, thank you for being on board. Total, yet again, thank you for being on board. Also, Car Sales, our naming rights sponsor, as well for in real life and virtual racing. Red lights about to go on. Remember, when the red lights extinguish, we're away and racing. They held them for quite some time ahead of round 7. We wait for the red lights to go off, and we look for a good start from John Martin on the front row. He needs points here. He's got a good start. We watch out for the contact further back. Ben Bargwanna's been able to jump his way through the order as well. This is round 8 of the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. And it looks like Jaden Ransley now leads from John Martin. John Martin holding on strong as Timperley and O'Keefe now up into the top 4. Rowan Shepherd in the mix there in 5th as well. Chelsea Angelo cutting a swathe through the field as we look to the order now. That's Rowan Shepherd. He holds on to 5th. Chelsea Angelo chasing him down. She's up into 7th place. She was on the podium in round 7. And we ride on board with Chelsea Angelo. Needs to keep it off the walls. It looks like Liam McAdams way back in the order again. He's struggling here at Surfers Paradise. Contact being made, but they're keeping off the walls at the moment. So it's Jaden Ransley, John Martin, Timperley, O'Keefe, Shepherd as well. Looks like Delberto hasn't been able to join us for this other race after his internet connection issues in the middle of round 7. There's Dylan O'Keefe, your series leader, making contact there with Timperley. Just up the road from them, John Martin putting a lot of pressure on Jaden Ransley as Dylan O'Keefe looks to the inside here, not able to do it through the chicane. John Martin still sitting in second, but look at all the cars lining up behind Timperley. Dylan O'Keefe wants to clear. I think he's got the inside run here, and Shepherd will go with him. Shepherd now fighting with Timperley. Timperley covers off. That'll bring Chelsea Angelo into the mix a bit further as well. And Dylan O'Keefe should clear out from here. We know he's got genuine pace over one lap, and that's Timperley looking back now at Shepherd, Suter, Angelo. They're all in the mix here. Will Brown's also buying his ticket.
Bit of paddle banging coming onto the main straight there between Rowan Shepherd and Zach Suter as they drag race down the straight. Rowan Shepherd actually got quite a slow start. Got swamped by a few cars as they headed down into the first chicane. The other driver who had some issues there on the opening lap was Luke King. We saw that he made contact with the wall on the exit of that first chicane as well, and that saw him getting shuffled back quite a few spots as well. But decent start from Jaden Ransley, like I said, putting his head down and building a gap over the cars behind.
Let's stay with it, Lockie. It could explode at any stage here, like we saw in the first race of the evening. Will Brown now up the inside of Chelsea Angelo. He's through, clears, off he goes. Eyes set now on Zach Suter, just up the road from him. Chelsea Angelo fights back now. So this is the battle over 7th place between Will Brown and Chelsea Angelo. They were both on the podium, with Will Brown being the race winner, Chelsea Angelo in 3rd at the end of the last race. There's Dylan O'Keefe. He needs more and more points. Currently sits in 3rd, right behind John Martin now is Dylan O'Keefe. He'll be filthy with himself. After round 7, he's a very serious, very professional driver, both in real life and also in sim racing. Very serious about his sim racing, Lockie.
He certainly is, and right now we're seeing that he and John Martin, along with Jaden Ransley, 3 of the drivers who we also saw competing in the ARG Esport Cup, all putting on a show for us tonight. Here's Ben Bargwana a bit further back. Hasn't been able to make a sufficient progress through the field as Will Brown so far, and is still languishing down in 12th position, so he needs to get a bit of a move on, Ben Bargwana, and get ahead of the likes of Rowan Shepherd and Zach Suter.
We've mentioned a couple of times throughout the course of our coverage in each of the rounds leading up to tonight that Jason Bargwana has been hot on the phone to us. Well, he's just given me a little nugget of gold here, Lockie. Really looking forward to seeing this unfold. Ben Bargwana is actually having a proper test in real life this Saturday at Winton in the TCR Peugeot. He's impressed in sim racing form and gets a chance to have a skid this week. That is huge news for young Ben Bargwana. We knew that he and Jason were going to share that seat, but great to hear from Jason that because of how well he's been going in the sim racing series, they're bringing that forward, that plan. So great to see for the young Ben Bargwana.
It's fantastic stuff, isn't it? And obviously, Bargs Jr. does already have some quite impressive racing accomplishments to his credit in the Hyundai Excel Racing and in Formula Ford competition, but can't wait to see how he goes in that TCR car as we look at... Is this Brock Timperley trying to hold off Will Brown at the moment, and Chelsea Angelo is still very much a part of this battle as well, as is Jay Hansen. So Brock Timperley with a freight train of cars forming up behind him at the moment as Brown goes for a late move down the inside in what is the 3rd last corner on the racetrack. Not quite able to get it done there, but he'll be looking for a strong exit from this final corner to try and get an overlap on Timperley as they head down the main straight.
Timperley's doing so much right, isn't he, just to keep Will Brown behind him. We know that Will Brown is not afraid to just use a bit of that bumper to pass, so we'll keep an eye out now. He'll start to get frustrated with Will Brown, and he'll push the envelope slightly as Chelsea Angelo continues to tuck onto the rear. Now Dylan O'Keefe has a run on John Martin. The 2 series contenders, Dylan O'Keefe knowing he needs as many points as he can get, should be through on John Martin. And we know that John Martin, very clean driver, will give up that corner because Dylan O'Keefe had the inside. And at a track like Surfers Paradise, If another driver has the inside, you pretty much have to concede that corner. Otherwise, you'll be tasting concrete wall. And Will Brown through now on Timperley. So Will Brown now up into fourth, and Chelsea Angelo looks to put a move on. She may well bring Jay Hansen along for the journey.
It was important for Will Brown to get that move done, because the longer that he was stuck behind Timperley, the more time he was losing to the leaders. And you can see that Timperley's now being overtaken by Chelsea Angelo and Jay Hansen with a much better run onto the back straight as well. They'll go side by side into the beach chicane, and it's Jay Hansen who just gets his nose in front when they get to the critical turning point. You really don't want cars running side by side through there, Cameron. If you cast your mind back to 2004, we saw a very nasty crash when Rick Kelly and Jason Bright tried to go side by side through there. It really doesn't work.
So Timperley trying to hold back Luke King. Luke King hoping for a run here. Timperley fighting back, looks to the outside, gets bumped wide, and that'll let King through. So gallant was Timperley. Fought so bravely, and unfortunately shuffled right back to 8th now.
Chelsea Angelo was a bit...
No, keep going, Lockie.
I was just going to say, yeah, Chelsea Angelo was a bit slow through that final sector as well, and she gave up a spot to Jay Hansen. So just a couple of little mistakes there for a couple of the drivers, and it was Angelo and Timperley who both ended up losing positions as a result of it.
So that's Luke King on screen. He has had a race win so far this year. Has had a chat with us, Lockie, at one point. Hoping to do it again, but I don't think it'll be tonight, because he sits in 7th at the moment behind Chelsea Angelo. A lot of things have to go his way if he's going to be able to make his way all the way up, even to the podium.
Look at this. This is the battle for the lead now. So Dylan O'Keefe, having got ahead of John Martin a couple of laps ago, has now closed right onto the tail of Jaden Ransley. It's only 0.3 of a second separating our first and second place competitors. Dylan O'Keefe's taken at least one race win in all of the venues that we've been to so far in this series, and he would love to keep the perfect record going.
So John Martin staying with him. Dylan O'Keefe hot on the heels here of Jaden Ransley. Just the way that these two have driven in terms of Dylan O'Keefe and John Martin, you know that Johnny Martin will pressure him the entire way to the flag. It's all about whether they can find a way through on Jaden Ransley. Early on, in the race still, plenty of racing to go. And you know that Dylan O'Keefe with his experience will start to pressure Jaden Ransley, particularly on those tyres. We're further back now with Jay Hansen, and he's in the battle with Chelsea Angelo.
And with Will Brown as well, who was quite slow coming onto the straight. So he had a big wave there, Will Brown. He's getting his elbows out to try and hold off Jay Hansen in the battle for that position. Wow, Will Brown driving a very wide Hyundai i30, and Jay Hansen's not happy. Gives him a big hit up the back as they exit the second chicane. He'll go to the outside here, Jay Hansen, and try and go the long way round. That's not the way to go. The two cars make contact, and it's Jay Hansen who goes up the escape road and ends up in the fence.
That was always going to happen with Will Brown. He had the inside of the corner. Hansen had given him a bit of a rub. There was no way Will Brown was going to give him any opportunity to drive around the outside. But look at this. Chelsea Angelo now has the run on Will Brown. Will Brown parks it to the inside. Chelsea, what's this? She'll just concede that corner and then have another run. Will try and park it to the inside, which is exactly what he does. Now, Chelsea will know not to get caught up trying to go around the outside here, because Will Brown will fence her. So she looks to the inside. She knows that's what she needs to do. This is what he's going to do. She's got the inside line. Will Brown covers straight off to the inside. And this is all about track position. Angelo gives him a bump. Will Brown's not going to make it easy for her. He's not going to let her get the inside. She has to unsettle him. She has to put him out of position. Then get the run. Because you know, with a driver like Will Brown, you try to go around the outside, he will make sure that you are buried in that concrete wall. We go for another lap now. Ben Barguana all the way up to 7th. He's now in contention for some good points. That's who we ride on board with, looking at Luke King. So Ben Barguana, we now know, is testing a Peugeot at Winton this weekend, coming on Saturday. will be hoping to bring home some more points now. As Dylan O'Keefe, it looks like he's got the opportunity on Jaden Ransley here. Inside of the corner coming up, and Dylan O'Keefe now leads this sim race. John Martin will look for an opportunity to get through on Jaden Ransley as well. And this is exactly what Dylan O'Keefe wanted. He wants a big 40 points haul and to continue that run of getting race wins at each of our rounds so far. John Martin now having a look at Jaden Ransley. We're halfway point of the race, Lockie, and Dylan O'Keefe is looking good.
Well, it was smart driving, wasn't it, from Dylan O'Keefe? He was content just to sit back behind Jaden Ransley, bide his time, wait for the mistake to happen, and we saw that Ransley ran just a little bit wide in one of the corners, and that was all the opportunity that Dylan O'Keefe needed to get up the inside. So Gary Rogers Motorsport, Renault Megane goes to the front. Looking a bit further back, Will Brown's got no pace at the moment. He's drifted more than 15 seconds behind these leading trio of cars. And he's got a big queue now forming up behind him. So behind Will Brown, you've got Angelo, you've got Bargwanna, you've got Luke King, you've got Liam McAdam. It's a huge freight train of cars. Bargwanna and King both ahead of Angelo now. And that's because Will Brown has been slowing up this pack.
So Ben Bargwanna won't allow Will Brown to get away with this. Watch Ben. He'll move him out of the way if he needs to. He's got to run now. On Will Brown is Ben Bargwanna. This is the battle over fourth place. Now Will Brown weaving as he makes his way down there. He'll get offloaded soon. They'll put him out of this race. He overcooks it. So too does Ben Bargwanna, but that gives Ben Bargwanna the inside here. And yet again, Will Brown shortcuts. Not sure how the stewards will be looking at this one, because now Chelsea Angelo looks to the outside. This is going to end up in one almighty incident. As Will Brown, as Ben Bargwanna, I should say, has been well and truly taken out in this race. And Chelsea Angelo's through now into fourth. Will Brown behind, and Luke King behind him. And then Jay Hansen has now made his way up into the battle here as well. Lap 8 of 13, and Will Brown backed them all up into each other, and unfortunately Ben Bargwanna was the big loser in that one.
Chelsea Angelo was the big winner. She basically did the smart thing. She sat back, she let the likes of Bargwanna and King do the dirty work of moving Will Brown out of the way, and she was able to slip past all of them and moves up into fourth position. And she'll have the opportunity to extend a bit of breathing space while Will Brown continues his fight to avoid losing any more positions.
Spot on there, Lockie. We watched Luke King. He's going to have his work cut out for him to get through Will Brown, who has made his Hyundai exceptionally wide. Just keeps positioning it in exactly the right spot. It's all about track management. As they're starting to break the back now of Jay Hansen. Looks like this group of three has got good pace. Will Brown's found something, and he's starting to attack Chelsea Angelo again now in their battle for the first step off the podium. So Angelo covers off here. Will Brown looks to the outside. Chelsea Angelo has done exactly what Will Brown's been doing throughout, and just keeping him at bay.
Look at how far all of these drivers have fallen back from the leaders, though, while they've been having this battle. It was up around 20 seconds as they crossed the start-finish line between these drivers and the third-place car of John Martin. It's fluctuating depending on exactly where they are on the circuit, but it does seem to be around a 20-second margin from third back to fourth at this stage. So it's an entertaining dice, and we're thoroughly enjoying watching it, but it's not helping them in terms of their lap speed.
So Will Brown now gets into Chelsea Angelo as she gives him a taste of his own medicine, just making sure that her entry parked well and truly on the inside of each of the turns. Not going to give Will Brown an opportunity to stick his nose up the inside. Luke King going with them. No, he's not. He's just dropped off the back of these two, but watch Chelsea move hard left. It's exactly what Will Brown did. He has to go to the outside here. He'll try to move her out of the way slightly, unsettle her car. Not able to do it there. The laps keep ticking down. We're watching the battle in fourth place at the moment, over fourth place, I should say. And Luke King now getting ever closer again. He's buying his way back in. In the meantime, John Martin only 0.3 of a second now off Jaden Ransley. That should be a move change very shortly. Here we are. We're right on board with John Martin. He's got a look. Still to the outside, but he's done it. John Martin now moves up into second. Great job. I've just been watching that gap come right down. So I wonder if Jaden Ransley had an issue, because out of nowhere, John Martin just pulled a second on him and was through. Now has to work on that 2.3 second gap up the road with only 3 laps remaining between himself and Dylan O'Keefe. This is a good response by both O'Keefe and Martin after a torrid round 7 for both drivers.
And you'd have to say that from a championship perspective, it's really important for John Martin to stay as close as he can to Dylan O'Keefe. He wants to minimise the damage in terms of the points that he's going to lose to O'Keefe out of this race. And unfortunately, Ben Bargwanna, after that spin due to the contact with Will Brown, has fallen all the way back to 11th position. So he's going to hemorrhage some championship points from this race as well.
So in terms of points for the series, we know that Will Brown, after the 40-point haul he got the last round, so round 6 and round 7, whilst they were great points hauls, he's, terrible luck at Albert Park, and then also his poor start at Sydney Motorsport Park meant that he was 117 points off the series lead coming into this round. And we're right on board with him right now, Will Brown. So with all the points he's getting, it's just not enough when you've got drivers like Dylan O'Keefe and John Martin still salvaging good points even on a bad night.
Yeah, exactly right. Will Brown to have any chance of getting back into championship contention, number one, he has to keep winning races, but number two, he'd also be relying on some poor results for the likes of O'Keefe, Bargwanna and John Martin, as we see him continuing to attack the back of Chelsea Angelo. This battle's been going on lap after lap after lap. Angelo, a bit slow out of the second chicane, has to drive it down the inside of the road. Will Brown to the outside. We've seen that that's not a particularly pleasant place to be, but he might just pull it off here. Deep under brakes for Will Brown. Manages to get the car turned around the corner, and he's pulled off a blinder of an outside overtaking manoeuvre on Chelsea Angelo.
Yeah, great job by Will Brown. We thought the car had gone away from him, but Chelsea Angelo's really dropping off the pace as Luke King gets a run on her. Will Brown just weaving his way down. He'll park it on the inside. Luke King now to the outside of Chelsea Angelo. She'll give him a hip and shoulder. He'll say, there's enough track here. I'll get a run on you. And so now Luke King through on Chelsea Angelo, chasing after Will Brown. And looks like Jay Hansen may well get through on Chelsea Angelo as well. The car rapidly dropping away. She'll park it to the inside and really blocking up temp, just like Will Brown has done to Luke King. Hansen to the outside. Gets exactly what we expected from Chelsea Angelo. So we go back to this battle again. Will Brown. And that's Jay Hansen on screen there. Up the row, though, John Martin only 1 second off the back of Dylan O'Keefe in terms of the lead. So that's been good driving from John Martin. 1 second now, the gap, with a lap and a half remaining in round 8. The Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. There we are. That's Dylan O'Keefe, your race leader. There's John Martin. They came in to this race event at Surfers Paradise in first and second in the series. Ben Bargwanna had the best of it in the last race, but Ben Bargwanna's back in 11th at the moment. So this topsy-turvy form for each of our drivers trying to take down Dylan O'Keefe. This run continues, and Dylan O'Keefe, just if he looks back on this season, if he does win this sim racing series, it'll be the consistency and his ability to gain points, generate points even on a bad night. John Martin and Ben Bargwanna, when they have their bad nights so far, they're dropped right to the back of the order. But when we've seen Dylan O'Keefe do that, he somehow manages to pull that car back into the top 6.
100%, but he's been fast at every round as well. Hasn't qualified off the front row. And like I said, he's won races at each of the 3 venues that we've been to previously, just over a lap to bring it home and complete his perfect record for winning at every track that we visited in the Car Sales TCR Sim Racing Series. and his margin 1.5 seconds back to John Martin, with Jaden Ransley still in third. I'll tell you what, I can't wait for the post-race interviews, and I can't wait to hear Will Brown's description of the battle that he's had in this race. Was that Chelsea Angelo just having a massive shunt in the back of the camera shot? I think it was, actually, because Jay Hanson's just mixed up.
Yeah, she's not in the mix there at all, is she, Lockie? But I was actually just counting up the results. As you mentioned, this will be the 4th race win. If Dylan O'Keefe can bring it home on this last lap, and again, there's a bit of contact there. Oh no, Luke King, he and Jay Hanson come to blows as King had an opportunity there to put a move on Will Brown. But credit to John Martin as well. If he brings home second, it'll be his 5th second place result for John Martin. Hasn't had a race win just yet. Ben Bargwanna did get that one in round number 1 of the series. But yeah, 5th, it'll be the 4th race win for Dylan O'Keefe and the 5th second place for John Martin. Always the bridesmaid, Lockie, never the bride.
It still means he's accumulating useful points, though, and he's just closed the gap to Dylan O'Keefe a bit over the last lap or so. So it's now under a second with half a lap remaining. Dylan O'Keefe can't afford to make any mistakes, or John Martin will be right there ready to pounce.
And Jaden Ransley here on for his best result so far in the sim racing series since race number 2 and round 2 at Albert Park. So he'll be happy with this result as we go back to our leader, Dylan O'Keefe. Not long to go now. John Martin right behind him. We've seen this picture quite a few times throughout the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series so far this year. We make our way through the final section of track, and Dylan O'Keefe has won every race we've been to. Albert Park, Bathurst, Sydney Motorsport Park, and now Surfers Paradise for Gary Rogers Motorsport. Great job for Dylan O'Keefe, and he now extends yet again his series lead. John Martin, 5th time he's come home in 2nd place, so he continues that great haul of points. But when will that race win come for him, Lockie? We'll hopefully find out when we head to Sandown at our next event. Great job too by Jaden Ransley bringing it home on the podium. He hasn't had a podium since round 2 at Albert Park, so been a couple of rounds off, but great to see him back on the podium as well.
Good performance from Will Brown as well, after picking up the win in race number 1 to come from the back of the field for a strong result in the 2nd race. That's a good effort as well, as we see that Ben Bargwanna comes through there as well, recovering to finish in the top 5 position, in fact, according to our results here on the screen. So managed to get ahead of Brock Timperley. I think that with some of the damage there towards the end for Chelsea Angelo and for Luke King, they dropped back a bit there. So Ben Bargwanna wasn't looking like a great night there for a little while, but he's managed to salvage a top 5 finish out of race number 2.
That is a great result for Ben Bargwanna. That's I thought he was about to lose a big bulk amount of points as our drivers head off to the beach. That's where they're going, Lockie. They found their way out to get out and have a drive on the sand. So we make our way around. All drivers through the checkered flag. Rowan Shepherd now was the last man through, and he finished in 9th place in that race. Chelsea Angelo, after the highs of the podium last time out, finished 7th in that race. And you're right, Will Brown, our race 1 winner tonight, round 7 of the series, has done an outstanding job in a car that looked like he was struggling with a bit of pace there for a while, but he's done a great job. And there's our drivers out on the sand. We just cut to very quickly. Great result, though, from Dylan O'Keefe, John Martin, Jaden Ransley, Will Brown, and Ben Bargwanna, you mentioned, up into the top 5. Brock Timperley and Chelsea Angelo, 6th and 7th. Luke King in 8th after that contact he had with Jay Hanson. And Rowan Shepherd in 9th place at the end of that one as well, Lockie, as a bit of circle work starts for our drivers. Good night, though, for Chelsea Angelo, you must say.
Yeah, like I said, probably the most competitive performance that we've seen from her so far, particularly in qualifying where she went on the front row, but you would have to say that she'd probably be a bit disappointed not to bring home the race win because she had the lead in the first of our races tonight. So, anyway, the fact that she's got strong pace is going to be encouraging moving into the final 3 rounds of the series.
Interesting night for us, though, Lockie. Just to sum it up, Dylan O'Keefe on pole position. We did expect that. Will Brown with a race win and then Dylan O'Keefe with a race win. it's been the drivers we've expected, hasn't it? That Ben Bargwanna and John Martin have been in the mix there with Dylan O'Keefe, and Will Brown's really started to come along in the last 2 rounds.
Yeah, like I said, Will Brown probably struggling a bit with his qualifying performances at the moment, but in terms of race pace, he's been terrific, and we've seen that he's had the ability to fight his way to the front of the field, as he did in race number 1 tonight, after starting a bit further back on the grid. So tremendous racecraft, Will Brown, and he's now 2-time race winner in this TCR Sim Racing Series.
He's done an outstanding result. Let's have a look at the official results now as they finished up round 8 of the Car Sales TCR Australia and New Zealand Sim Racing Series. And it was Dylan O'Keefe with that man John Martin right behind him yet again. We've had 4 race wins now for Dylan O'Keefe. We've had 5 second places for John Martin. And rounding out that podium was Jaden Ransley for HMO Customer Racing. So a wonderful result for him. His first time back on the podium since Albert Park in round number 2 of the series. We're not far away from having a chat to a couple of our drivers. Thank you, Lockie Mansell, for all of your efforts tonight. It was great to hear from you. And as we always do at the moment, I'll just check to see that we've got our drivers in position. Have we? We've got Will Brown. Will, mate, well done. You won last time out at Sydney Motorsport Park, and then you've won first time up at Surfers Paradise, mate. You must be happy with that.
Yeah, it was a bit of fun. We actually had a ball in that last race, a few of us, but it was good to get the win the first one. It was a bit weird here because you don't know where the curb hops are. In quali, it's very, very hard, like easy to get one, but you don't know where they are. They change. So, I think we were all starting to cut a bit more, so there might have been a little bit of that in it, but yeah, it was a bit of fun.
And you've really come along in leaps and bounds from a series point of view with the constant performance of those 3 up the front. Probably a little bit of a bridge too far for you, so race wins will be the focus. But, mate, let's talk us through some of the blocking that was going on out there, particularly in the second race of the evening. You were straight to the inside whenever you came off a corner, weren't you?
It might be questionable blocking, but we're all actually talking to each other in Discord while racing. Then, so we were sort of saying, "I'm blocking here," or "I'm passing," like just getting everyone a bit nervous and that. So it was actually a lot of fun. We enjoyed it a lot. So glad to be back on the simulator actually.
Yeah, well, one more question just before I let you go as well with regard to the sim. Now, Surfers Paradise, you were on the Indy circuit, the old circuit, mate, that you haven't been able to race on and never got to race on. They've put the G-Link in there now, so we wouldn't be able to go back to that format. Tricky old track to drive in anything, but TCR car, just how hard is it to get those cars rotated through those corners?
Yeah, it was strange. I went out there thinking it was the V8 Supercar track, and I only logged on tonight and went to turn left where I know, and it wasn't there. So yeah, it was cool to obviously do the other circuit because I've never been there before. A lot of the other guys have, but in supercars. So that was great. But like I say, it was pretty actually fun track and good to race on in the TCR cars. Just knowing where those curb strikes were. They really should have probably in the race had curb strikes with a limit you could do, but because there was no curb strikes, we all probably used them to our advantage a little bit. So no, I had a ball. I think we all did then, so it was good.
Mate, well done. Thank you very much, Will. I'll let you go.
Cheers, thank you.
All right, we'll head over to Dylan O'Keefe. We're making a habit of having a chat on pole position and then round 8 winner of the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. Dylan O'Keefe, you have won at each round we've been to so far. Congratulations, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Cam. I think that's one of the actual motivating factors was trying to get a win tonight, especially to try and keep that streak going. So I thought I was actually a bit complacent in race 1. I thought that I had that done from the start. And then I realized how much of the track everyone else was using and I wasn't. And I ended up understeering into the fence because I was trying to avoid the bollard and not shortcut the track. And then I had to finish that race with like the last 7 laps with 90-degree steering. So that definitely wasn't ideal. And I was pretty frustrated because I wish I had it. In hindsight, I should have cut the track. I would have been fine. But in the last race, not saying I cut the track, but I definitely did what everyone else was doing in race 1. And use that to motivate myself to try and get that last win, which was a lot of fun.
Dylan, let's be honest, there was a lot of straight lining of chicanes by many drivers out there, particularly in that second race. We did wonder though if you did have contact early on. Chelsea got a good run on you as well there. Just how difficult was it to bring that car home in a 6th place, which was a gallant effort?
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea was doing a fantastic job. For her to get on the front row was awesome, and she was holding with me. So I thought all I had to do was just manage the gap, and it would have been good. But with that said, yeah, ended up understeering into the fence and breaking my left front steering a little bit. And I had to drive with 90-degree steering. I've only got like one of those little Formula One wheels, so it was quite strange to drive at home like that. And I just had no straight line speed, so I knew I just had to consolidate and get at home. So then I had half that race was just thinking about why did I just do that? But anyway, that happens sometimes. So yeah, good to get the win in the last one anyway.
Well, let's talk about that. When you looked into that rearview mirror, you saw a very familiar bonnet because 5 times now John Martin has finished second, and most of those times has been right behind you. Did you just look back and go, here we go again?
I know, he was, and once again, it was only like a second the gap. So he loves only being like a second behind me. So I don't know, but as long as I win, that's all that matters. But yeah, John's done a terrific job on this format of simulator program as well. So I'm sure he'll get a win sometime soon. But as long as I can keep bringing him the points and extend that championship lead. But I mean, the email during next week will be pretty interesting with all the report from who's getting penalties and stuff. So I don't know, the order that we saw in race 1 and 2 could be completely reversed, depending on the steward's decision, I think.
Well, let's also start to talk about the series because we're past the halfway point. In fact, we were the halfway point at the end of the first race tonight. There is a battle in 3, definitely raging there. You managed to do a good job in race 1 tonight to stem the potential loss of points. You've done the best job you could in the second race of the night, but John Martin with that constant point haul and Ben Bargwanna, after dropping all the way to the back, actually finished in 5th. This one's going to go down to the wire, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure will, and I think that's the thing with this car. I mean, you can spin on the first lap and you can still manage to come back to a decent position. So, it could go either way. I mean, one mistake from either of us could mean you're out of contention. So, hopefully the last 3 rounds are good fun. And I mean, this is a unique track because it's a street circuit and you can cut the chicanes, what have you. But the next couple of rounds, hopefully, is a bit more on outright pace. And hopefully, we have some good battles.
Now, I should also mention in my last little bit with you, mate, because I will let you go. It's a midweek. It's a school night. Not that many in many of our states are going to school right now. But Gary Rogers Motorsport's been great to see them really get behind this sim racing series as well. And I know you get in and out of the workshop when you can, when you're allowed to, and everything else as well with that. But great to see that team. I mean, they're a wonderful team, but also getting behind sim racing, which I know you love and have a passion for anyway.
Yeah, it sure is. I mean, obviously, Gary Rogers Motorsport are open to a lot of things, and we've seen that this year, transitioning through to the TCR program and also S5000. So we've got lots of drivers in the team this season, but they're willing to take things on board, and the online racing's good. And I mean, Gary himself obviously never had the luxury to be doing simulator driving during his career or even up until recent times. So I think he's all for it. And as long as we're practicing and keeping ourselves sharp, I think it's a good thing. So we can also have that enjoyable aspect as well. And from my point of view, it's just great to be competitive, we can't be competitive on the real racing circuit, so we can use that energy on the simulator and replicate that.
And it's also a lot cheaper to race in virtual world than it is in real life. And Gary Rogers doesn't mind saving some costs as well. Well done, mate. We've been 100%. To 4 different circuits. You've had 4 wins, and we've got another half of the season still to go. So congratulations and good luck for the rest of it.
Yeah, thanks, Cam. Appreciate it, mate.
Well, that wraps up tonight's coverage, rounds 7 and 8 of the Car Sales TCR Australia and New Zealand Sim Racing Series. Thank you to Lachlan Mansell joining me, Cameron Vanden Dungen, in the box here in our respective studios around the country. Thanks to the team in Italy as well that put on this show for us. Everyone at ARG tuning in, all the teams, drivers, and everyone around the world. A big shout out to my mate Bagus in Bali. I know he tunes in always, as well as all of our viewers all over the world. Thank you very much, guys. We're halfway through the sim racing season, so make sure you tune into all of our social media accounts, and we'll see you next time.